All right, welcome everybody to the Cfap Coronavirus Food Assistance Program webinar. I'm Debbie Naylorode. I'm the New Growth Women's Business Center Director, and along with Katie Nixon, the Food Services Director for West Central Community Action Agency. We have some great speakers who are going to be working or who are going to give us some good information on Cfap, the program, and how to apply and their experiences with it. Just a little bit of housekeeping to begin with. If you do have any questions, please put those in the question and answer section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. And if you do have a question, you can also raise your hand and we'll see what we can do to get those answered for you as soon as we can. So to begin with, let's start with Emily Shelby. She works with the Farm Services Agency in Henry County, and she's going to provide some good information on the Cfap program, as well as information that may be useful for you when you would like to go and apply. So take it away, Emily.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share a PowerPoint and we can kind of visit about it. See if I can get it. There we go. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Real quick, if everybody could go ahead and mute just so we can make sure that Emily is heard well, then that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, it didn't share right. Give me just a second. Ah, there we go. That's better. Okay, so as she said, I am Emily Shelby. I am the Henry County FSA Director, and I just have a little bit of information about Cfap 2. So this is different than Cfap 1. That was early summer of last year. This started in the fall of 2020. And so Cfap 2 is the only program that is still currently open for timely applications. And we'll kind of discuss who's eligible, what commodities are eligible, and what payment categories we have. So the first thing to reiterate is the goal of this program. The goal is to provide relief for producers that continue to be impacted by COVID-19. So these are operations that have been impacted since April of 2020. There's a whole variety of commodities that are eligible for Cfap 2 that were not necessarily eligible for Cfap 1. Also, with this program, the participants will receive 100% of the eligible payment now. Cfap 2 came in 2 different payments. This program is different, where it pays the entire eligible funds at one time. And also, payments are not withheld to satisfy prior debts. They want these issued to producers to help with COVID relief. And right now, as far as the sign-up deadline goes, they have not actually given us a deadline. So we had an original deadline with Cfap 2, it came and passed, but when the new administration came into play, they reevaluated the program and decided that there was still a need for additional funds and to give participants a better chance to apply. So they have reopened that window of time for applications, and so far we do not have a current end date. Okay, so as far as who is eligible, so any individual or a legal entity that it shares in the risk of producing an eligible commodity. That's our first criteria. They also have to have an adjusted gross income of less than $900,000 for tax years 2016, 2017, and 2018. Or, like the slide says, they have to derive at least 75% of their adjusted gross income from farming, ranching, or forestry practices. They also have to produce commercially. So we can't really do home gardens, But if you had a commercial operation that you sold, cattle or crops or anything, fruit and vegetable production, anything like that, we can look at if it's been sold commercially. And also they have to be in business at the time of the application. All right, so a few clarifications. So even if you participated in Cfap 1, that does not make you ineligible for Cfap 2. They are two different programs and you can apply for both as long as you still meet those eligibility criteria. We will get into some other categories for application and they will talk about sales. And we want to clarify that new producers may not have historical sale records because 2020 may have been your first year in production, and that's okay. You can still apply. We have other ways to work around that. This does not include producers, though, that are no longer in business or the business of farming at the time of application. Okay. This is kind of quick, so because I don't want to just read all the slides to you. Feel free to ask questions if you have them, though. We do have payment limitations for this program. The limit is $250,000 per person and legal entity, and that applies to the total payment for all eligible commodities. So if you apply for a program and have cows, sheep, broiler chickens, you've got a whole array of things that you're applying for. The cap is $250,000 for all of it. And then we also have different payment limitations for corporate entities, including LLCs, LPSs, trusts, and estates. They can receive up to $500,000 if two members can show that they contribute at least 400 hours of active personal labor or management, or they can get up to $750,000 if three members each contribute at least 400 hours of active personal labor or management. And they want us to clarify that Cfap 2 payment limitations are separate from Cfap 1. So they're two different, for each of our programs, it'll have its own payment limitation. Okay, so the most important part that everybody probably wants to hear is how to apply. So if you're new to USDA, that is no problem. We've had a multitude of new producers. Prior to COVID, people didn't always participate or didn't know how to participate, and this has brought in a lot of new producers to us. So we're happy to help you fill out the application. We'll just start from the beginning. So we want names and addresses. We will need some personal information from you, such as a tax ID number. The reason for that is that's how we issue payments, and payment limitations are tracked with by the Social Security number, so to make sure that we get the funds to the correct individuals. We also will probably need to know some information about your farming operation structure. We will ask for what we call an AGI. If you haven't participated with USDA or FSA in particular very long, you will learn we talk in acronyms and numbers. So it's an adjusted gross income form, but you would probably hear the staff at your local office call it an AGI. And that is where we will ask if your adjusted gross income was more or less than $900,000. We will ask for direct deposit information so that we can send the payment directly to your bank. We can do a hardship waiver if we have to get a hard check. It just takes significantly longer. So it's typically better for the producer to get the funds quickly to do a direct deposit. And then depending on the application, we may have to file an acreage report. There are also links on this slide if you would like to fill out your own application at home. You're welcome to, but know that we are here and happy to help you fill it out from the get-go. Government forms can get sometimes hard to understand exactly what we need, and we're happy to help. Okay, this is just a slide with a link on it to go check out all of the eligible commodities for the Cfap 2 program. So if you question whether something you produce is eligible, I would encourage you to follow this link and do some research. Okay, so they're also utilizing a customer call center. So this is a nationwide phone number. You can call and ask any questions to an FSA employee about help filling out an application or, what is eligible with this program. Now, like I said, this is a nationwide number. So this gives you potentially anybody across the nation. And you're more than welcome to use it, but always know you're welcome to call your local office also. Your local office can probably pull your farm number pretty quickly and be happy to visit with you about it. But either way, these are both good resources. Okay, now for this program, we have 3 commodity categories that we're going to look at. We have price trigger commodities, we have flat rate row crops, and we have sales commodities. And I'll go into details about what each of those are. So for your price trigger commodity category, this is commodities within this category that include your acre-based crops. So that is going to be your barley, corn, sorghum, soybeans, upland cotton, wheat. That's also going to include your broilers and eggs, your dairy. So that's going to be specifically your cow milk. And then it's also going to include your beef cattle, hogs, pigs, lambs, and sheep. Now, on this last line, that does exclude breeding stock. So if you call us and are ready to give us your inventory numbers, we are going to have to exclude your breeding stock. So for beef cattle, that's going to leave you with calves, heifers that have not calved yet, virgin bulls, and steers. Those are going to be the ones we're going to look at most specifically. We have to exclude the breeding stock. Now, for the price trigger on cow milk, this will give you an idea of what producers will receive. So they're going to look at paying per pound of milk, and they're going to look at what had to be dumped, and then they have to look at what was produced. I won't go into too much detail because I know we don't have a whole lot of dairies left in the area, but if you have detailed questions about that, feel free to give us a call. We also have price triggers for eggs and broilers. So this chart breaks down what a producer is eligible for when you look at shell egg, dried egg, liquid egg, frozen egg, and broilers. And that pays either per dozen, per pound, or per head. And the producers will report to us their 2019 egg and or broiler production. And then new producers that do not have 2019 production will self-certify using their 2020 actual production at the time of application. So this last line here is where I was saying earlier, it's okay if you're a new producer that didn't start until 2020 and you don't have that history from 2019. It's okay. We can self-certify your 2020 actual production, which at this time, now that we're into 2021, you very well may have your 2020 information and we'll have it pretty accurately. Okay, this will be pretty common locally. This is our price triggers for livestock. For beef cattle, we're looking at a payment rate of $55 a head. On hogs and pigs, we're looking at $23 a head. And on sheep and lambs, $27. So producers will report their highest inventory by head from April 16th to August 31st of 2020. Now this is yet again where breeding stock is not eligible. So we have to exclude that from the count. Now, and that is different from Cfap 1. Cfap 1 did break those down and paid very individualized depending on the weight of the calves, if it was cows or if it was fat cattle, it broke all of that down. Cfap 2 is distinctly different, where it pays on beef cattle as a whole, but excludes breeding stock. Okay, we also have a price trigger for acreage-based commodities. What producers will receive with this, which I guess I should explain, the commodities in this are going to look at your soybeans, your barley, corn, things like that. This will be the greater of the eligible acres of the crop multiplied by a nationwide crop marketing percentage, multiplied by a crop-specific payment rate, and then by the producer's weighted 2020 APH approved yield. Those APHs most commonly pull over from crop insurance, and that was where we got that. If the APH is not available, then we use the 85% of the weighted 2019 Ark County benchmark yield for that crop. The other payment option, it'll be the greater of either the equation above, or eligible acres will be multiplied by a payment rate of $15 per acre. These are our price triggered commodities, and this shows what their payment rate is. So, for corn, it's going to pay by the bushel, and it's going to pay at 40% of the crop marketing percentage. And then you're looking at a payment rate of 58 cents a bushel. And if you call with any questions for your application, we can pull your planted acres and we can run an application and can give you an idea of what your estimated payment will be and give you an idea of what we're looking at as a whole for all commodities that you have. Okay, we also have a flat rate category. All of the commodities listed on this graph are what would be paid by a flat rate. So these are non-specialty crops that USDA determined did not have a 5% price decline between January and July of 2020. And with these, it does break down what is eligible versus ineligible on those crops. So all crops that are on the eligible acreage flat rate list are listed on the website, and then failed acres are eligible. Now, what is not eligible is crops that were intended for grazing, green manure, or left standing, or acres that were prevent plants. So producers in this with these flat rate crops will receive a flat $15 payment on each eligible acre for each eligible crop. Yield is not considered, they only look at the acreage. Okay, so applying for acreage-based commodities. Depending on the crop, acreage-based crop producers will be paid according to the price trigger or the flat rate payment category. This is where we have to have an acreage report on file. So if you have not filed an acreage report for 2020, when you come in to apply for Cfap 2, we can assist you with creating a crop report for your farm and getting it accurately reported. And we're happy to visit with you about what all an acreage report encompasses when you come in. What we usually need is going to be what crop was planted on particular fields, when they were planted, and what the shares of that crop were. So let's say we pull a map and it has 2 20-acre fields. You would tell us, okay, this was corn, this was beans, and this field was planted 6.2, and this field was planted 4.25. And then the share is 100% because I cash rent the farm. That is the kind of information we will need for a crop report. Okay, now the last category for Cfap 2 is the sales commodity category. This includes specialty crops, including fruits, vegetables, and tree nuts, aquaculture, floriculture and nursery, and specialty livestock. So specialty livestock includes raised for food, fur, fiber, or feathers. We also have tobacco, goat milk, mink, mohair, and wool. In this category, eligible sales include only the sale of raw commodities grown by the producer. Sales from adding value like processing and packaging are not included. So this is only the sale of the raw commodity. So if you've done any, I guess you could say, improvement to the commodity, that is not going to be eligible. It has to be that the commodity in its basic state when it is sold. And you're going to report the total commodity sales in dollars and cents to the office or on the manual form. And these slides tell you exactly where to list that on the application. And this,
so Emily, just to clarify on the raw product, because rural development, I think some of us have been working on value-added producer grants. Just putting it in a box or a package is considered value-added in rural development terms. For FSA terms, like if you were to put, mixed leaf lettuce in a clamshell and put a label on it, that's still a raw commodity product. Am I correct in that?
I would think that would still be eligible because that is your most basic sales point. You haven't added any improvement to it. I'm trying to think of a good example. An example would be, so where I came from, we had a lot of pecans. So if you harvested your pecans and sold them to a wholesaler just as a raw pecan, that would be the number we would need. But if you had done a lot of efforts to process those pecans and package them specially and sell them or retail, that value added sale is not what's eligible. What is eligible is that initial raw sale price. I would encourage anyone that has specific situations in this category to talk to your local office and visit about your exact situation to see what exact sale total we are needing for the 2019 sales. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And with this category, it is looking at your 2019 sales. I know that this was dealing with the 2020 COVID, but for the sales category, they had to have a whole year to look at. So they want your 2019 sales of eligible commodities in the raw state. And then this is how they look at the payment factors. So if your 2019 sales, were between these ranges, this is the percentage that it will pay for the payment factor. And yet again, it's okay if you're a new producer that does not have 2019 sale records, we can use your 2020. I've got an example of how the math works out on this. So if a producer had 2019 sales of eligible fruits that totaled $75,000, the payment for this fruit producer would be calculated like below, where $49,999 of sales will be paid at 10.6%. The remaining $25,001 sales will be paid at the 9.9% of their payment rate, which gives them a total payment of $7,775. So they will break it down based off of each category. And I always remind producers of this. So luckily, state office put this slide in there. Documentation reminders. When you sign your application, you are certifying that what you report on your Cfap 2 application or any application that you put in with our agency that it is accurate. So please keep your documentation that you used to certify to these numbers and to keep your application. Always be prepared for a spot check. We never know when they're going to happen. National office just sends us a list of randomly selected farms usually, and we have to spot check those. So please always keep your records so that you are prepared if we send you a letter letting you know that you've been pulled for a spot check. And it is possible that a producer's reported quantities may be adjusted after review. Okay. Applying for Cfap, how to get help. You can always ask for and receive help in filling out your applications. And I think I've said it just a few times on this presentation, but you're welcome to call your local office or call the call center, which the call center does have language interpretation. So if you need to speak to someone in a different language, you're more than welcome to follow the prompts on the call center, and they can get an interpreter on there to assist with that. We also have USDA partner organizations that have experience working with FSA. So they are also happy to help with technical assistance. Okay, what happens after you sign your application? So as a producer, once you sign your application, you have 60 days from signing that to resolve any eligibility issues with the local office. So if you sign your application and we still need an adjusted gross income form that you didn't fill out at the office, you have 60 days to get that back to us to still be considered timely. Local offices will also begin reviewing a producer's application after they have signed it, and will follow up with any questions or missing information. Approved applications are processed for payment, and producers will be notified and provided opportunity to respond to adjustments by USDA that affect a producer's payment. So if you had an application and the county committee, which would kind of be my board for the county, looks at it and feels like there was any issues or concerns that they wanted to adjust, the number of head or sales category, any of the income on that, they could adjust that if they had enough information that they felt that they could reasonably make that determination. They would make that determination, but a producer will always be notified in writing, and probably a phone call, but definitely in writing, that there had been an adjustment to their Cfap application. And at that time, the producer would have the opportunity to appeal that decision, and they could ask for, it to be reevaluated and to see if they could have it pushed back to their original numbers that they had certified to. Okay. For more information on Cfap 2 eligibility, eligible commodities, payment limitations, or how to apply, please visit farmers.gov/Cfap. And also, feel free to sign up to get updates. So subscribe to FSA and FSA Outreach News and Alerts. They have the link on this slide. You can enroll and select Outreach and Education, and they'll keep you up to date with current program information and any educational efforts they're making for the programs. You can also reach out to your local office and ask to be put on text alerts. We send those out periodically towards the during and towards the end of signups. And we also do a monthly newsletters from Henry County to the Henry County producers to let them know what programs are going on, what deadlines they have, just basic reminders. And every county does this. So even if you're not in Henry County, other counties do a monthly newsletter. And the state office also sends out a monthly newsletter that is covers a wider range of program information, maybe not quite as specific as your local county, but it definitely covers a lot of information. and you can reach out to the local office to get signed up for all of that. That is all I had, unless there's questions.
Anyone have any questions for Emily? All right, there's no questions in the Q&A, so let's go ahead and move on to Miranda. Miranda is from Lincoln University Cooperative Extension Office, and she's going to share some information with us regarding Cfap, as well as her experiences that she has had applying and receiving Cfap too. Go ahead, Miranda.
Hello, thank you, Debbie. Thank you for having me here today. Yes, Miranda Dushak. I do work for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension here in the St. Louis area. I work with farmers, and I am also a farmer myself. So I'm going to be speaking today. I call it CFAP2 program. So as I talk about it, I'll be calling it that. My own experience as a farmer applying and receiving a payout. So just to explain my farm, here are some of my flowers. My business partner and I run a urban cut flower farm in St. Louis City proper. We have about an acre of land now, which we're over half a city block. Our farm dates from 1870. It was condemned and vandalized, and we bought it in 2012 and have been rehabbing that, adding high tunnel greenhouses, hoop houses, caterpillar tunnels, all that type of thing. We grow specialty cut flowers. So cut flowers are, I'm going to bring out a beautiful ranunculus here. Look at that, so unusual. Maybe on the computer you would say, why would you buy that? Here's one that's pink. Specialty cut flowers are the actual cut flowers that we use in design. So we sell them directly to florists at farmers market, direct to the customer. We design weddings and events. And then we have educational opportunities. We do on-farm tours. We go around the state and country teaching about cut flowers. So when the pandemic hit, the florists were like deer in headlights. My goodness, all weddings were canceled. Things started getting really scary for what were we going to do with our flowers. Farmers market got canceled. You know, we were looking at a whole heap of compost there. So we had to do a big COVID pivot to start selling online sales with contactless pickup on our porch. So a farm stand essentially in the city. And then we worked with the farmers market to do deliveries and pickups through them. And then we started to slowly open farmers market up again. But all last year, I'd say no weddings, and our big florist sales, our wholesale florist sales just collapsed. So the CFAP2 program came across my email, and I said, I'm gonna learn more about this right now. And I called my FSA office, which is located in St. Peters, Missouri. It's the closest one to me, and they were super helpful. And they directed me to a website, and we talked about it. So for cut flowers, we were in the we learned that, yes, we could not count our wedding sales from 2019, right? This is the idea of the adjusted gross sales. So anything we designed, right, that was not included, right? That was considered part of value added. It was also determined that for cut flowers, anything we grew in greenhouses and high tunnels, not acceptable. That was sort of like a blow to the heart there, but we have to follow the government's rules, right? So we had to look at our sales, take out the design, and then take out of everything that was grown under any structure. Pardon me. But with that, it's still like, hey, great. You know, this is not a grant program. I try to make this very clear to the farmers I work with. After I said, okay, I went through this process, it was pretty easy. We have good bookkeeping. You know, I spend a lot of time making sure we use a very common bookkeeping system. So it was easy to pull up our gross sales. But after we went through the adjustment period and then, you know, determining the adjusted gross sales, what we were eligible for in the application process, I mean, we had our check direct deposited probably in like 3 days, which really, really helped us get through. So, so yeah, not a grant, meaning we didn't have to pay it back. Yes, we could be eligible for some kind of audit, but we felt really solid with our numbers. And then the other thing that people should be aware with the CFAP2 program is that it is taxable income. So we did have to declare that on our 2020 taxes as income. So kind of determines how it shakes out for you. If you show income on your farm, it adds consequences, but the consequences outweighed the consequence of not having money. So we were very grateful and happy to participate. And what can I say? What else can I add about this? I got 6 other farmers in my region to apply for and receive payments. I would say, just from the extension hat, you know, traditionally, farmers that are have been perhaps traditionally feeling unwelcome by USDA programs, they were the most reluctant to participate. But generally, we tried to get over that and walk them through the process. So CFAP 2 thumbs up. Any questions?
All right, well, it doesn't look like we have any questions oh wait, hold on, somebody's got a
There is
question.
a question in the chat about partnership, and Tom is actually he could probably talk to that since he's in a partnership with several farmers. So let's let Tom do his, and then if that question is still unanswered, we can come back to it. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then. So hopefully you all can see my slide there. I'm going to talk about what I call the view from the farm on CFAP2, and just I don't have any pretty flowers to hold up because I don't grow flowers. So I put up a picture of my farm that's a number of years old. So I'm Tom Buller, a co-owner and operator of Common Harvest Farms. We are just east of Lawrence, Kansas. We have 3 partners. 2 of us kind of do most of the work. So there's myself and Jill Elmers. And we sell things together. We grow things a little bit kind of on our own, but operate an LLC that is a partnership structure. So I'm not sure about unincorporated partnerships, but an LLC is certainly an eligible applicant, even if you're operating as a partnership. So maybe Emily can answer at the end about partnerships in general. But if you are incorporated, you are an eligible applicant. So we have together about 35 acres. We have maybe 5 acres in production, growing mostly vegetables, some small fruit. I have some blackberries and other things. And Jill grows a few flowers. So basically we sell everything as raw agricultural products. We're not doing any value adding, any jam or jelly making, any of that kind of stuff. So for us, you know, this was a process of learning about the program and applying for the program, and I'll go through that just a little bit. I can put up the whole form, but once I found out about the program, I was really stunned at how simple the application was. So this is a snippet here from page 2 on the application. It's a 2-page application, or front and back. And the front page was basically like put on your business name, your address, that sort of stuff. And there was, if you had dairy or some of those other things, there were some spots on there for that. But then on the back side, you know, we don't have any cattle, don't have any hogs, pigs, sheep. Sales commodities. So that was that last group that Emily talked about. So that's where all of our numbers are. So basically we just put in our 2019 crop sales and nursery and floriculture sales into these boxes you see here. So it says excluding Part G crops. So Part G crops are like those regular, I don't know, corn, soybeans, those kind of things, just like what standard row crops, I guess. I'm not sure what all's on that list, but pretty much in my interpretation of it, and this isn't entirely true, there is a long list, but pretty much anything that isn't one of those traditional crops falls into this, you know, box 18 crops window. I mean, there's just such a long list of things that you could grow for sale. Likewise, the nursery and floriculture. And then I guess we don't have any animals on the farm, but for other people that do specialty animals outside of the regular cattle, hogs, pigs, and sheep, my understanding was pretty much all of that stuff kind of fits into this other livestock, excluding the breeding stock. But so if people are growing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Emily, but I feel like llamas, like I can't remember everything on that list, but it was like a huge list of all kinds of weird specialty livestock was on there. So this was like one of the few programs I've ever seen. I guess I'll talk about that on my next slide here, which is called Why I Love CFAP 2. So the first thing is like, I feel like it was a farm program for the rest of us. So you know, there are so many FSA programs that are targeted for, you know, the vast majority, I guess, of American agriculture by production. So the corn, the soybeans, the beef cattle, and I feel like a lot of those farmers have good relationships with the FSA. They know the people. When a new program comes out, they're aware of it. But a lot of the people like me, and I guess in my day job, I'm also an extension agent. So people I work with that do fruit and vegetable production really don't even really pay attention to what's going on with a lot of these FSA programs because they traditionally have been left out. There's some sort of either what they're growing isn't covered by the program or there is some records requirement. That was one of the greatest things about this program, I think, is that farm reported income is your basis for your claim. So this isn't, so some of the other programs like the NAP program, non-insured agricultural products, you have to have a verified record, which basically means if you're selling it to a third party and you get a receipt, like you're selling it to a food hub or a wholesaler, you have that documentation necessary for that program. But if you sell it at a farmer's market, you're kind of out of luck. Whereas this program was based on farm verified, farm attested to, I guess, sales. So those sales are, you know, as long as you can support those, this program will pay for your time on those. So that's really helpful for a lot of smaller farms who maybe don't sell to wholesale channels or have that documentation for some of those other programs. So I think that's one of the great features about this program. So compared to a lot of things out there, it was super inclusive in terms of what kinds of products were covered with it. And it was inclusive on sort of a very low threshold for record keeping. Not to say you don't need records, you need to be able to prove what you claimed if you get called to question. But you don't have to have what they consider verified records, I guess, for some of the other programs. So for those reasons and the really simple application, I just like absolutely love this. When I first heard about it, there was Cfap 1, which really didn't help a lot of the people I work with. And then the CFAP 2 program, like people I work with, myself, is like, this is made for us. So I felt like it was a great job by the FSA to be responsive to the needs that were out there for small farmers, for diversified farm operations. Super simple application. So yeah, really just I want to encourage you to tell your friends and fellow farmers, if you know people who fit into sort of odd boxes in the agricultural community, maybe they aren't paying attention to what's coming out from the FSA because they feel so small or they feel like those programs haven't been able to help them. This is a great opportunity to help them out. I mean, it's very rare that I can talk to one of my fellow farmers and figure out a way to make them an additional 10% of their income, but that's basically what it comes down to. If you have a farmer who hasn't applied to this program and is in that specialty window for the non-acreage crops, I guess, or specialty livestock, I mean, they're really looking at boosting their income by maybe 10%. So it's just a great opportunity to do that. If anybody does have questions about that, I'd be happy from a farmer perspective to reach out. I can't really walk you through the paperwork, although it is very, very simple. I can't answer technical questions, but if you have some other, I guess, less technical questions, feel free to reach out to me. So with that, I'll stop sharing and be happy to answer any questions. Although I guess I ran long. But...
That's okay. That
Joe,
was
did
great.
you get your question answered?
You can unmute yourself and talk if that's helpful.
I will say, reading Joe's comment, it has been a very easy thing to misunderstand the difference between Cfap 2 and PPP. So I can understand where that confusion would come in, but PPP should have been mostly through your banks.
In fact, we were going to do a joint PPP / CFAP presentation today, but then the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, ran out of money. So we took that off the table and we just focused on CFAP. But like Tom said, I mean, I also farm on my off West Central job, and we, got about 8% of our income back from the total income that we had on the farm, and it was fantastic. I mean, we declared it. I just did my taxes, so we got it in 2020, and it didn't really affect my taxes too much, so that was fine. We bought a tractor with it. It was great. So.
And I will say, I forgot to add that my payment took a little bit longer than Miranda's. Some of the people I talked to, and was like, hey, you need to apply for this. They got their payments really quickly. Mine was actually split into two and took about 30 days for the first one and maybe 45 for the second one. But there was some extenuating circumstances. My local office was closed at the time. So it was like, go there, put the application in a mail slot, they go up to the door and get it, like no contact at that time. So it took a little bit of extra processing to get it all done, but yeah.
I was gonna say, one of the barriers I found with working with other farmers and my clients in extension is the reported gross income. I had some people, the notorious cash in the basement type situation, and they were saying, well, I didn't, I'm like, no, we're talking about reported, okay, gross income. And I see that as something with as farmer friends and also ag educators. Like, I'm really glad that our books were in order, that we were reporting all of our sales, because if we weren't doing that, we would have had a lower payout. So I know it's kind of hard to talk about this, and this is going to be recorded, and there's a government official on the conversation, but I do think it's something that when we have that level of trust with our farmers and our farmer friends, that it's okay to share to the government what we're doing sometimes, right?
And I just have to throw this out there. It's not Cfap. I know Tom had kind of mentioned it in passing, but I know sometimes it is limited with what programs we have available for specialty producers. I do acknowledge that. I have nothing to do with it, I promise. It's above me. But I would encourage any specialty producer to kind of look at NAB. If you do keep good records, it might be a good option for you to help give it a little bit of insurance coverage. And if you are a socially disadvantaged producer, you can there is the opportunity for some assistance with the premiums. Sometimes they can be waived, and that can help give some coverage on disaster years, you know, drought, or, you know, the flood of 2019 for my previous county took out our pecans, and it helped give some coverage to those producers that lost all income for their pecan production. So that would be something I would really encourage you, if you're willing at all, to visit with your local county FSA office and see if the records you currently keep would be detailed enough to work for the program, or if you'd be willing to, you know, have them be a little more detailed. There might be an opportunity there that I would hate for a producer to miss out on.
That might be a subject for another webinar, NAP for small farmers, as well as talking about the whole farm revenue program that is also being tweaked yearly to try to make it more accessible to specialty crop growers. So, yeah. Do we have any other questions in the chat? Otherwise, we can wrap this up.
I think we're good. Thank you, everyone, for. Go ahead, Katie. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Thank you to both of our producers and extension agents on the call. I feel like sometimes extension agents are, you know, superheroes in disguise because they're always working on their own farms trying to make it happen as well. So thanks for being on the call today. And Emily, thank you so much for making that really easy to understand and being very welcoming to our group here. So and Debbie, thanks for working with me to put this webinar on, or other way around, really. I worked with you.
And you too, Katie.
All right, thanks everybody.
Well, thank you all for participating and for joining us today. And I will send a link to this webinar out for you as soon as I have it available. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to, there's some email addresses, and the slides that you will see in the presentation have some other information on it. So as soon as I get that ready, I'll send it out to you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good day, everyone.